1. Must know. Slow pace. Not all about lemon. Decent grammar. Handsome author. Author has big PP. Note for my veteran readers. See at chapter titles. Yeah, disgusting. I know you guys are frustrated too. I don't want to do that either, but I don't have a choice in the meantime. But worry not, cause after I finish rewriting everything and reach the New World arc again, I will revert it back to its past glory. So just hold on, I promise that to you guys. Kissy face. Sounds of the rustling crowds. In a particular street in Tokyo, one can see a boy, wearing a school uniform while carrying a box that has a lot of stuff in it. This is so goddamn heavy. His name is Unko Takahashi. 18 years old. A student in a nearby college. His looks are pretty normal. Not handsome, definitely not ugly. His height was around 170 centimeters, has black hair and black eyes. He had a few pimples on his face, but most of it was being covered by his hair. A typical look for a normal Japanese if you ask anybody. He doesn't have any noteworthy characteristics. In short, if this is an anime or manga, then the boy will definitely be a mob character. The type of character that you usually see in the background of the story that anyone has watched or read. Yawn. Oh man, I'm so tired already. Sigh. His classes had just ended. He was on his way back home. The books that he is carrying are the materials for their group project that they will present tomorrow. He is the one that has been assigned by his classmates to bring the materials tomorrow, as they all have different things to do. Sigh, my arm is hurting already, this is so goddamn heavy. I wish I have teleportation powers so I can go back home fast. Unko continues to grumble as he walks along the streets. He is tired already and he feels that his arms are starting to sore, so he fastened his pace since right now, he wants nothing but to reach his apartment and get his well-deserved rest. After 5 minutes of walking, which almost looked like an awkward run, he finally arrived at his apartment. I'm home. Unko said as he swung open the door, then enter. As he expected, no one answered back. The only thing that welcomed him is an eerie silence. In fact, he'll be more surprised if someone answered him. He's alone in this apartment ever since he started living here. His parents died early, a couple of months after he was born. The cause of death was a truck. Truck-kun decided to do his parents when they are both outside for some unknown reasons. In short, it was a double kill. Yeah, pretty unfortunate. But Unko hated both his parents. Not because he grew up without them, but because he was also hated by both of them. His everyday life was so difficult because of his parents. His parents weren't even good people in the first place. He tried asking his uncles and aunties about his parents, but they can't tell any more than the basic ones since they are not that close in the first place. The only thing he knew about his parents is that they hated him. Of course, he is not sure about this since he has no way of knowing, but what can he say when they literally named him Unko, that means sh*t poop. If it's not because they hated him so much and want to make his everyday life so miserable, then no one knows. Whenever he was being called by his friends or classmates, sometimes even his uncles, they can't stop themselves from giggling even though they don't mean it. Imagine that someone wants to call him from afar, but they're in a crowded area. Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing both for Unko and the caller. This causes him trauma that whenever he was being asked about his name, he is only saying his surname and never the name anymore. He's just saying it if it is really needed. Tud. After he enters his apartment, he throws his bag to his bed and slams the box full of stuff on his table, then immediately changes clothes. His apartment is small, that is if you compare it to the normal ones. Though small, it has all the things he needed for his everyday life, so Unko couldn't ask for more. One of his uncle on his mother's side was supporting him ever since he was a child. He was the one that took care of him after his parents' death until he reached high school. His uncle has 2 daughters. His wife died early too, so Unko knows that raising him while also supporting his 2 daughters is hard, and yet, his uncle still did it. So after reaching high school, he decided to stop being such a bother to his uncle and decided to move to a small apartment near to his new high school. Of course, his uncle didn't think that he was a bother in the first place. Of course, someone might ask how did Unko afford to rent an apartment by himself since he rent this on his own? Well, simple, he has a good sum of money. It was his parents' money. Supposedly, it should go to his uncle for taking him in when he was still a child, but his uncle didn't touch the money and decided to just give it to Unko when he finally hit the right age. A good man and worthy of respect. That's how Unko thinks of his uncle. Clank. After he changed his clothes, he goes towards his small kitchen area to prepare some food for himself, then proceeds to eat after that. After he finished eating, he grabs the box full of stuff and started sorting it out. He needs to study these materials since he will also present some of this in front of the class tomorrow. Although he wants to do nothing right now but watch anime or sleep, he has no choice since he doesn't want to get scolded by his classmates. That's why even though the expression that Unko has right now is clearly stating that he doesn't like what he's doing, he still does it nonetheless. He simply doesn't have a choice. Increment, 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 increment. A few hours later. Yawn. I finally got it all. Good thing since my head will explode if I do any more of this. Sigh. After 2 hours of studying, he finally stopped. He stands up from his chair and goes to the bathroom to wash his face. Splash. After drying it with a towel, he stares at his face in the mirror for a minute before grumbling in an unchanging expression. Look at that messed up face. Why can't I have a good-looking and handsome face just like Takamura? Ah. The world is so unfair. Why is my life so boring? After a minute of shaking his head in the air, he stopped. Sigh. I'm so envious of all the good-looking guys in the whole damn world. My right hand was too tired already and the porn on the internet was too generic for my taste that my junior won't get up anymore. When will my future girlfriend arrive, goddammit? After a moment of big desperation, he finally got out of the bathroom with a tired expression and goes towards the bed and lazily slam himself on it. Aish, my brain is toasted, I'm going crazy. He continues to mumble some things for a moment and finally, silence had enveloped the whole room as he closes his eyes and falls asleep. Increment, 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 increment. Next morning. Unko wakes up early and takes a bath after eating breakfast. He changed his pajama to his exercise clothing and goes outside to do his daily morning exercises. Even though his face was relatively normal, his body is really athletic and fit compared to others. He is really taking care of his body just to make up for his bland face. He is doing all this just so he can at least brag something about himself. This is his routine for every single day. He never missed doing one except when he really needs to do something much more important or if he just can't. Increment, 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 increment. After an hour of jog and a bunch of workouts, he finally decided to stop. He sat on a bench in a nearby park to just take a break before going back to his apartment to get ready for school. But while he was sitting on the bench, drinking some bottled water, he suddenly heard some commotions from the people in the near block. Curious about what is happening over there, he stands up from the bench and goes towards where the commotion is happening. He slowly walks towards the bunch of rowdy people and tried to take a glimpse to see what is going on, but failed cause there are just too many people blocking the view. He saw a middle-aged man in the far back of the group. He is wearing a working suit and it looks like he got there before him, so he decided to approach the man and ask him what was going on. Excuse me, sir? He asked, but the man didn't respond or even look at him like nothing is even happening. Sir. He tries to tap the man's back just to call his attention, but when his hand touches the back of the man, his hand suddenly passes through the man's body. Wah. He didn't even have time to be confused as the man's body started to fade like he was Thanos snapped. The man's body has shattered and turned into dust as it disappears in the wind. What? He immediately looks at the people around him. He plans to call their attention to see what is happening in front of him, but when he looks in their direction, there's no one there, he is alone. What the FCK is happen? But Unko didn't even manage to finish what he was saying as he suddenly heard some mumble noises. Oi, joy of there. What is the kid do? He looks towards the direction where the noises are coming from and there, he saw a crowd of people, and from the looks of it, they were all looking anxious while shouting in his direction. Unko can't hear what they're all saying since their voices is really distorted, like someone is pressing the mute button repeatedly inside his head. But as seconds go by, the voices that he's hearing have started becoming louder, and as it becomes louder, the voices become more clearer, and as it becomes clearer, the more he started realizing the situation he's in. His realization had started kicking him in the butt. It was like he lost his ability to hear things and slowly get it back as the voices of the people and the different horns of the cars he is hearing are getting louder and louder as time goes by. When he saw this, it was like waking up from a long dream and he suddenly realized where he is. He is in the middle of a highway, alone of course, since this is not a place that ordinary people should go to. He glances at both sides and saw all the people there, telling them to get out on the spot he's in. He also saw some of the cars that have stopped since he is blocking the way. The drivers inside of the cars are shouting for him to get his ass out of the way. But that's just some, since there are also some cars that didn't stop and continued speeding up. How did I get here? OSH*T, I need to get out here first. He is so confused about how did he get here as he was just sitting on the bench of a park a couple of seconds ago. But he decided to not think about it for now and was about to run back on the sides of the highway, where it is safer, but as he was about to do so. Honk. Honk. He suddenly heard a loud horn behind him. He looks in the direction of the honking sound and sees a big truck rushing in his direction. He saw the panicking driver inside the truck repeatedly honking and gesturing for him to get out of the way. Based on the expression of the truck driver, he cannot control the truck. In his perspective, it looks like someone is controlling the truck. The driver stepped on the brake repeatedly but it just won't stop. OF*CK. When Unko saw the truck, it was close already and was coming at him at almost full speed. He knows that he won't make it even if he tries to dodge by running in any direction. So he has no choice but to just immediately duck and hope that he is small enough to fit under the truck. It was all nothing but survival instincts. He didn't even think if he can really fit under it. When the truck was about to pass above him, he heard some panic shouts and screams of the people. Some even cover their faces and choose to not look at the scene that was happening in front of them. Unko just ducks on the concrete floor with all his might, trying to stay flat as he can. He saw the front wheels of the truck passing through his far sides. Meaning, he successfully fit under the truck and saves himself, but he didn't even have time to sigh in relief when he saw the truck steers its wheels and immediately change direction. Goddammit. When he looks at the back wheels of the truck, he saw that it was rolling on his way, fast. He rolls his body to the right side as fast as he can so he can avoid being splat by the truck wheels. But he didn't notice that the space between him and the bottom of the truck is not big enough, so when he rolled, his left shoulder got caught and hit the bottom of the moving truck, which caused his rolling momentum to be interrupted. He still manages to dodge the wheel of the truck but his right hand got caught up and was rolled by the wheels. Og. He felt that his hand was crushed as it got limped and can't feel it anymore, but he didn't felt any pain as his adrenaline was rushing throughout his body like crazy. So when he saw the truck that finally overpassed him and crashes to the side of a building that is under construction, he sighed in relief. Luckily, the driver manages to jump out before it hit the building and no one other than Unko got hurt, which sucks for him. F***CKU truck coon. Not cool. Goddammit. Even though he's in a miserable state, where his hand got crushed by the wheels and the other one is full of wounds, he can't help but compare himself to some light novels that he had read where the Mick was being isekai'd by some truck. He immediately stands up and ran to the side of the building to avoid any further miracles. He was so glad that he didn't die there, but his happy thoughts were suddenly interrupted by some loud noise. INNNKKKK. Now what? As he was running, he suddenly heard a sound coming from above. It's like a sound of a turning metal that you usually heard in big metal machines. When he looks up, he saw a big crane above the building. That building is the same building where the truck crashed. The crane suddenly turns its direction and the rocks below it suddenly cracked. Crack. Crack. Boom. The rooftop of the building where the crane was suddenly exploded for some unknown reasons and causes the crane to fall below the streets. The people below started to run in different directions. But, weirdly, the crane is falling exactly where Unko's direction is. He didn't wait any further as he ran already in opposite direction. He ran as fast as he can. He looks back and saw that it was about to fall on him. F***CK. What is happening today? Am I cursed? He looks everywhere for a possible chance of survival and saw a maid cafe near him. He didn't waste any more time as he ran in that direction and immediately throw his body towards the door and bash himself inside. Boom. The impact of the moment when the crane crashes on the ground causes the ground to shake a little. All the cars in its way were immediately destroyed and flattened, but all the drivers inside it managed to get out before it crashed towards them, and miraculously no one got killed and only a few got hurt. I'm still alive. I'm still F***king alive. Wahahaha. Crane-chan you be *tch. Unko immediately stands up and laughed and shouted like a madman. He looks around him and saw that the people inside the cafe were looking at him with strange gazes. Oh, I am sorry. I didn't mean to shout. And no, it's fine. Rather, you look hurt, are you alright? You should sit here for a moment, your shoulder is bleeding and your hand. One of the maids has stepped forward and talked to him as she saw he was hurt. Unko realizes it and was about to sit, but he suddenly remembers that for some reason, he was like getting hunted, and even though it was just his imagination, it's really bad that if these people got caught up if what was his thinking is correct. Thanks for the offer, but I think I'll just go. Don't worry about this, it's not as worse as you think. I'll just head straight to some hospital later. Goodbye. Okay, be careful. The maid was about to try and talk to him as she was worried about his state, but she saw that Unko immediately run outside. She couldn't say any more and just wave him goodbye. Damn. It was still the first chapter, but non-stop actions are coming already from here and there. When he goes outside, he immediately scans the area and saw that the whole streets are blocked by traffic of cars, so no potential running trucks that are going towards him so soon, and also no cranes at the top of the buildings are to be seen. He stepped completely outside, but he was still wary of his surrounding. His feet and muscles are all tied up and were always ready to run back towards the cafe just in case something comes flying at him. He warily walks towards the streets, but he was still on the corner of the street near the open buildings where he can run to just in case he needed to. He just passed through the traffic of cars and goes towards the open streets, but at that exact moment. Screech. Suddenly, a sports car was rushing through him at full speed. Ha! I knew it. He immediately runs back at the traffic of cars and jumps at the roofs of it to have some covers and protection from the devil that was coming for his life, that is called Lamborghini. GIE. Boom. He almost falls from the roof of the car he was standing in from the impact of the crash. A victorious smile appears on Unko's face and stands up with his chest up proudly. Bahaha. You failed. Again. You thought that I didn't know what's going on. Even if I look like this, I am smart to know what's you're up to. Biwahaha. You can't kill me, you F***king bit C. Boom. Suddenly, a lump of metal that looks like a satellite comes rushing from the sky and immediately crashes to the position where Unko is. The whole street was destroyed, and some of the cars have been flattened completely. FFCK. But miraculously, Unko was still alive even after that. The lower half of his body was crushed, but he is still alive since his upper body was in a direction where the gap between the satellite is positioned. Satellite. Are you kidding me? Whoa. Suddenly an ambulance's sirens can be heard coming in his direction. If this was an isekai story, this must be the most painful isekai story ever, haha cough blood asterisk. OFCK. When the ambulance's siren was getting close, he looks up to the sky. After all these unfortunate events, there's no way that this is the end of it. Alright, NHG, now what? Suddenly, just the moment when he asks that question, he saw a lot of liquid coming out from the crashed cars near him, and it's almost flooding the whole floor with it. Ticks. 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 He heard some noises near him, and when he looks towards it, he saw a sparking live wire from the broken satellite. The satellite was still shaking due to its position, causing the live sparking wire to fall on the concrete floor that is full of gas that is leading towards the cars. The exterior of the cars might have been destroyed, but the engines inside are still alive and intact. He knows because he can still hear the engine of the cars roaring as it was still running when the driver immediately leaves their cars earlier. When the live wire drops on the floor, the gas on the ground ignited and the flames immediately spread and entered the car's gas tank. And immediately after that happened. sh*t. Unko said with an unchanging expression. Boom. From a far distance, a loud chain of explosions can be heard. It lasted for a minute before the explosions finally stopped. Increment, 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 increment. After the end of that day, the police have finished their investigations and everything was starting to be put back to where they were supposed to. Yesterday's event was still unexplained and a lot of mystery was going on. But thankfully and surprisingly, only a few people got hurt and there's only one casualty. The media asked to name who was the person that died in that big accident. The boy who died in a mysterious accident was named Unko Takahashi. May he rests in peace. And at last, for the very first time, no one laughed when they heard his name. Press F in the chat. Have I also said that this is my second work? I have written my first original novel not so long time ago and it's definitely a must-see, so go ahead and check it out. And also, Power Stones. Better drop that thing and leave a review. Bye. Evrabonzz creators' thoughts. 269 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 2. In a place where anywhere you look you'll see nothing but white space, a black-haired man lying down on the floor while looking unconscious are to be seen. Of course, this is Unko. He was lying on the floor for a couple of minutes already, and even though he looks like unconscious, he was awake from the very beginning. He was just pretending. But after a few minutes, he realized that what he's doing is practically pointless, so he finally decided to stand up while acting like he just regained his consciousness and also a bit confused. When he tried to look around, he saw nothing but pure white space. He was all alone, no one can be seen within the range of his eyes. He didn't know whether this space is infinite or not, but he didn't dare to know. He just stays still and waits for something to come. If ever there is. I'm not supposed to ask, but where the hell am I? After a couple of minutes, he finally voices out his question. But no one answered. He waited for a couple of minutes more, but when he got tired of standing and looking around, he decided to just sit still and relax. Hello, how are you doing, child? When he was about to sit, a voice of a woman suddenly rang out from his back. He was startled by it and immediately turned around to look who it is. Whoa. Wait, who are I mean. Can I ask who are you? Please. Unko said with an awkward tone. The moment he heard a voice, he most likely know his situation already. No, actually, he already know it ever since he arrived in this place, that's why he is waiting for something in the first place. He just let his guard down since the woman that appeared behind him decided to appear when he is already planning to rest and take a break. So if his isekai knowledge is right, since all the things that had happened to him till now is pretty much a perfect formula for an isekai story, then right now, the being that appeared in front of him is a god, or at least something like that. That's why Unko immediately changed his tone the moment he realized this. Both his speech and tone became respectful in an instant. He can't afford to offend this woman by speaking in an informal tone. So after he threw the question to the woman, she immediately answered back with a slightly amused tone. Well, of course you can. I am an avatar of the god that was assigned to be your guide until you leave this realm. She suddenly raises her arms wide and a light suddenly appears around her. She maybe thinks that it makes her look holy. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Unko is staring to the so-called avatar of the god, really serious. The moment he saw the god's face, he was immediately hit by a familiarization. Yeah, for some reason, she looks very familiar for Unko. Unko tried to think hard as he looks towards the god's face really intently, and as seconds goes by. He finally realized why. God. Can I call you that? Yes, you may. The god answered with an unchanging expression. Okay. Then, my question is that your real form? Unko throws the question with a nervous tone. The god looked at Unko for a moment before answering his question. No, my child. I don't have a real form. This form of mine was nothing but an image that came from your mind. Before I appeared in front of you, I look into your mind and find the image you adore the most and like and took it as my current form. That's so. Good thing that it's not. When God heard this, a confused expression appeared on her face, wondering that maybe something is wrong with the image she used. What's wrong with the image? I thought that you'll like it. She tilted her head while questioning him. I mean, it's true that I liked it. But I think that seeing an image of a porn star is really not suited for me in this situation, as it is giving me a really weird feeling instead. Unko said with an awkward expression. The god stares at him for a moment and she suddenly closes her eyes, and once she opens it again, her eyes are completely different. It looks like you are looking at the stars in the night sky. It was pitch black with a shining dots of lights around it. She stares at Unko for only a couple of seconds before she closes her eyes again and turns it back to normal. I see, I understand. If that is the case, then. She snaps her fingers and suddenly, a light covered her whole body. It only lasted for a couple of seconds and the light slowly died down. When the light completely died, the look of the one that is standing in front of Unko changed drastically. Now, would this be fine? The look of what used to be a woman changes and is now exactly look like Unko's uncle. Yeah, the same uncle that raised her ever since he was child. Unko was a bit surprised when he saw this, but it was immediately replaced by a genuine smile on his face. But when remember he just died, he felt a bit sad. He didn't manage to fulfill his promise to his uncle or even say his farewells before he died. Yeah, thank you for your consideration. It's really perfect. Unko replied to God that has the image of his uncle with a smile. That's good. And also, no need to talk politely to me, it's completely fine. Don't worry about it too much. There's a reason why I picked the image of the person you adored and liked the most. It's so you can develop a feeling of familiarity with me and converse with me more casually. So you can stop worrying too much now. The god said to Unko like he already noticed the worries he has the moment he spoke towards him. All right. Sigh, Unko said with a sigh of relief. He finally got a pass to speak more casually right now. So with that, let's start already, shall we? Yes. Although Unko doesn't have a single idea on what exactly are they going to start. He just agreed nonetheless. Don't worry, you will not be hurt anymore. So be at ease. Said by the goddess while looking at his slightly worried expression. No worries. I'm totally fine. Unko said with a weird tone as he remembered that he was just brutally murdered not so long ago. At least that's how he perceived it. But even so, it's not like he can throw a tantrum here, asking who sent those things that killed him. Even though the god told him to speak casually, Unko knows that being rude and informal is still a red line. So even though he has a lot of question about him being killed, he just pushed it all behind his back since it's not like he can do anything about it anymore. And the event that had happened to him a while ago didn't traumatize him anyway. In fact, he's not bothered at all, like dying for him is just a casual thing to happen every morning, that's how calm he is. So when Unko said that he's fine, he is really fine. Mentally, that is. Okay, then. To make things official, let me introduce myself again. Welcome to my very own white space, my child. I'm an avatar of the god that was assigned to be your personal instructor. Starting from now on, and until you leave this space. You are not called human anymore. All the creatures that have managed to come here are called the guarantors. They are the ones that have been challenged and tested by the gods. It is before they died. Do you have any questions? The god asked Unko. I'm too speechless. Everything was too sudden for him, all the information was flooding in his mind. It keeps coming and coming that he was having an imaginary slight headache as he keeps on processing all the new information on his mind. Well, I think that you already have a vague idea of what we're about to do. Can you guess it? Asked by God. If it's the same to the novels that I have read. Then, reincarnations and 3 wishes, maybe. Oh, you are slightly correct about that. But when it comes to the reincarnation, it will be your own decision if you wish to do so, as this matter is really complicated. You are correct about the wishes, but it's not exactly 3 wishes. It can be less or more than that. Sometimes, you won't get wishes as your reward, it can be other stuff as well, it can be different for every other guarantors, such as yourself. Now, can you guess where the results are being based on? Is it based on the karma thing? Unko said as he remembers that the MCs of the isekai novels that he has read was usually being judged by their karma on their past or present life. That is the most common thing he can remember. And sometimes, for some reason, they get like AFCK ton of karma, that resulted in them being so goddamn op. Actually, we do. But not for every guarantors we've met. Every guarantors have different types of challenges that they needed to pass through before they can become an official guarantor. And be rewarded based on their results. For example, let's have a look at yours, shall we? The god snapped his fingers and a HUD-looking screen appears above them and displays a different bunch of text in it, but Unko can't understand any of it. That's actually impressive. I have met a lot of guarantors that have faced the same challenge. Let me guess, you didn't get any notification first beforehand, right? Asked by God while still looking in the HUD screen above them. Notification. Unko was confused about what kind of notification he was talking about. If it was on the phone, he gets a lot of notification every day. He didn't know which notification the god was referring to. Just what I thought so. It happens a lot actually, sometimes if your race was too weak or doesn't have a single affinity on any type of life energy. You won't be able to sense or even see the notification. Okay. Life energy. I have a rough idea. But I will ask anyway. What's a life energy? Okay. Let's put it in more humanly terms. For example, smartphones back in your world. Even if you do have a smartphone. No matter how much I emailed you, you won't be able to receive it or read it, if you don't even have a life energy, or in this case, an internet connection. Now, do you understand it? Oh, okay. I understood it now. That's great. Now, since you haven't received any notification, I'm pretty sure that you don't know exactly what's your challenge in the first place. The god snaps his fingers again and the text in the HUD screen changed into Japanese characters. Now, Unko can finally understand what is written on the screen. Type. Survival challenge. Content. Survive the incoming. Different types of disasters that are coming for your life. Survive as long as you can before you die. Difficulty. Easy, impossible growth. Time completion. Infinite PS. It means, it's non-stop until you die. Rewards. 1 wish per level achieved. End results. 5 levels achieved. 5 levels. I was attacked 5 times if the explosion counts. Is that the level? Unko said as he realized what was the level is. Yes, you have achieved 5 levels before dying. And that is impressive. I have met a lot of humans already, and most of them only manage to achieve 1 level or 2. Rarely I have seen some who achieve 3. But I've only met 6 humans so far that managed to surpass 4 levels and above. Unko thought about it more and agreed to it. Even him, if he was not alert enough, he would have died instantly just from that truck who almost hit him not so long ago. Whoa, that was really shocking. I mean, you have met someone who passed that falling satellite. Wow, maybe that man was a legend. I mean, I survived that falling satellite by nothing but pure luck. It still hit me though. Said by Unko, while being amazed that someone had survived that madness. Their luck must have been maxed out. Is that what it is to you? Well, like I said, all the type of challenges that every guarantor have faced was different in its own way. For the survival type, the only similarities that you, human guarantors have faced was the thing called truck at the first level. I heard that the other gods that have been keeping an eye on your planet loves to send out some trucks as a human's guarantor first level. Oh, okay. I guess they are the ones who started that fuss, huh? Unko pondered to himself. Well, with all of that explained, I think we should proceed with the rewards already. Said by God as he waves his hand and makes the HUD screen above them disappear. Ah yes, I've been waiting for this. After all the pain I have been through. Said by Unko while looking so excited. Someone's excited, huh? Well, I can't blame you for that. Alright, since you have reached 5 levels, you are obviously to be granted an exact 5 wishes. But before we get on that, I need to tell you something first. Before you used all of your wishes, you need to use at least one of your wishes to choose your type of departure from this realm. It can be either of the three: reincarnation, transmigration, or you can just be transported to the place you want to go. And also, remember that the wishes is not perfect, so some results may not be what you expect them to be, so when using a wish, be direct about it as possible. If you have any questions regarding about any of that, go ahead. Said by God. Okay, I only have 2 questions. 1. Can I choose to go back to where I came from? I mean, to Earth. 2nd, does the option of getting transported, reincarnated, transmigrate, is possible? I mean, like in anime or movie world. Asked by Unko while hoping that the second question is possible. Honestly, I was actually expecting that kind of question. 90% of human guarantors I have met have asked the same question and wished almost the same wishes. Sigh, I believe that you humans called this kind of thing as cliché stuff. Hee. Well, what can I say? All those things are too good to be true, that it only exists on the dreams of every ugly fat bastard in the whole earth. So when they know that you can have a chance to do all that, you can't blame them to ask if that was really possible or not. Alright then. Well, regarding your questions. Yes, all of that is possible. Yes. The god was suddenly interrupted by Unko's sudden outburst. Cough. Oh, I'm sorry. Just feeling too excited that I can't help myself. Please, continue. Unko was embarrassed by his actions, but the smile hasn't left his face yet as he was extremely happy to know all this. As I was saying. Yes, all of that is possible. But, if you choose to go back on Earth where you came from, you can only choose the choice of being reincarnated back to Earth with your memory completely wipe out. Of course, you can use a wish if you want to keep your memory intact. But still, multiple conditions are still to be met after that. It's not really a wise choice, let me tell you that. But still, your decision is what matters. It's fine, I'm just checking if that's possible or not. Especially now that I know that my second question is possible. Alright, let's get on the wishes already as I still need to go somewhere after this, so, shall we? The god seems to be in a hurry, so Unko just immediately nod. Alright, let's get on with this. After saying that, the god clasps his both hands and a big rectangular glowing violet crystal appears above them. It looks really majestic and beautiful as it continuously shines above them. The god raises his one hand and suddenly, 5 magical circles appear on every corner of the glowing crystal. While all of this is happening, Unko suddenly questions something in his mind. Wait, why am I called a guarantor if the god in front of me was the one who will grant me a wish? That is so weird. But of course, he didn't voice it out. The god that looks like he finished the things he was doing, lowered his hand, and looked at Unko with a passive look and said, "Now, state your wishes, guarantor." Unko closes his eyes and started to think about the real things that he will really need in the right world to go to. His desire was completely different from what a normal person would want as he was thinking of something much more appropriate, and will grant him much better things in the long run. After a couple of minutes, he has already thought of the wishes he wants. After talking to himself like crazy person would do, he opened his eyes and looked at the god in front of him, waiting for him to say his wishes. Okay, for my first wish. Is there someone so generous in here that can give me something like, what do they called again? Power stones. Yeah, give me something like that. Also, you can PayPal me here if you want to support me even in the very least amount, it might help me encourage to release more chapters, you know. Hee. Web links. Evrabonzz creators thoughts. 77 comments 0 vote. Chapter 3. Okay, so for my first wish. Unko hesitated for a moment but decided to say it anyway. It is to live a comfortable life. For the next couple of seconds, the god said and do nothing but stare at him. Feeling awkward of the situation, Unko tried to explain his first wish. What I mean by that is. Unko tried to explain, but didn't manage to do so as he was suddenly interrupted by the god. I understand. You do. Of course, I can see your intent for that wish. But there's a lot of things you need to know. This wish is possible, but like I said earlier, wishes is not perfect, so all your intent about this wish couldn't be implemented. But I do admit that your intent is extremely well thought, unlike any other human I have met, where they immediately ask for things such as M's, Super Saiyan Bloodline, Rinnegan, and Gate of Babylon. The god said with an amused tone. PFF'd. Unko almost bursted out after he heard this. He already expect that those powers are probably to most wished powers if some other otaku is in his current position. Oh well, to explain what I just said about your wish, it's like this. Your comfortable status can't be applied to everything that surrounds you or linked to you. Remember that it will only be applied on a personal level. For reference, let's just that you choose to be reincarnated in a medieval type of world. Normally you need to use another wish if you want to choose your status before you reincarnate, since the reincarnation departure is actually random. You can be either a boy or a girl, a peasant or a prince, a nobody or something that will bring an impact to the whole world in your next life. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, I understand. Unko said as he listened to the god's explanation hard. But with your comfortable status, you pretty much don't need to use a wish about your reincarnation status, since the status you will have on your next life is a personal level. So with your comfortable status, it's hard to see you being born in a poor family, since it won't make your life comfortable. So the chance of being reborn with a high status is really high. You can either be a noble or a royalty. But for example, you were born as royalty, as a prince of a certain kingdom. Living a life where you have all the riches in the world, wouldn't you agree that your life will be comfortable? The god asked Unko, but the god didn't even wait for his answer as he speaks again. Seemingly to answer his own question. Well, it can be both comfortable and uncomfortable, since being a prince of a certain kingdom comes with a lot of responsibilities. Personal level is the things that will only affect you living your life in that particular world. Also, just to let you know that wishes is also a personal level, so it will naturally be affected by your comfortable status too. But the work and the things that will happen to you while you were living your life will not be part of your personal status, since only you can decide your own fate. If you were killed by someone in the end, then you can't blame your status of comfortability, since all the things you did in that world are the reason why you are killed. Your fate after you were born will not be affected by your comfortable status, since you are the only one that can drive your life. Do you understand the concept now? Yes, I kinda get it now. Unko is still pondering and processing some of the information he just got, but answered yes nonetheless. So, do you still want to choose this as your first wish? The asked Unko with a serious expression. Unko didn't answer immediately as he keeps pondering for a moment. A minute have passed after that, he finally raised his face and looked towards the god. Alright, I'll take that as my first wish. Unko stated with a nod. After receiving his confirmation, God raises his hand and point it towards the floating crystal above them. And to seemingly respond in one of his wishes, one of the 5 magic circle that is hovering around the magic crystal disappeared. I see, so that's what it represents. Unko thought to himself as he observes the magic circles. After all that happened, the god faces him again and say. Granted, now state your second wish. Okay, I will now choose my departure. Alright. The type of departure and the world you will go to is both included in one wish. You can say that it's like a package deal. I see, that's convenient. Then I will choose the transportation as my departure. Some might thought that being reincarnated or transmigrated are a much better choice. But Unko thought that in his case, being transported is a much better case, since he doesn't want any connection at all. Being reincarnated or transmigrated means he will have a family. Choosing a certain someone that has no such thing as family or relatives will consume one wish. He can't rely on his luck too, since his comfortable status will intervene. It will surely transmigrate him or reincarnate him in a rich family, since being alone and has no one to depend to are really not comfortable. Surely that's a good scenario for everybody, but Unko has plans, and he can't have someone that he might be attached to. It will just make things hard for him. Unko has some question regarding about his departure, but before he can even ask or throw his questions away, the god smiled and beat him to it. Like I said, my child, I can read your intent like an open book. I know your worries, so let me tell you that yes, you will have an identity if you choose to be transported, since an identity is a personal status. Living in a world as a person that has no identity is not comfortable, is it? I see, thank you for explaining. Then for the world. Before I say the world, can I ask if I can choose what date I will be transported to? Or it is also randomized and I need to use one wish for it? No, you have the right to pick the exact date you will be transported. In fact, not just the date but also the place. Alright, then for the world. I choose the world of 2138. In year 2125, the exact date isn't important but it should be at least mid-year. Then about the place, it's in Tokyo, Japan. This time, Unko stated his wish clearly since he's expecting for the god to understand his intentions just like he said earlier. With this wishes, I already know where you're going with this one. But before all that, I need to tell you one more thing since the path you're trying to take is a really complicated one. The god said with a plain tone. Just as I said earlier, the wishes are not perfect. But that's not all, the wishes are also one-dimensional too. Meaning, you can't bring the wishes in another world. The wishes will only be usable in the world you chooses from your wish. So the moment you hop in the new world, all your wishes will be gone. The moment Unko heard this, he was stunned. Some of his plans have been ruined immediately. Sigh. But of course, he just accepted the painful fact since it's not like he can do anything about it. I see. It's a large loss and a depressing one, but I will still choose that world with the same date and place. Unko said with a resolute tone. I see. Then as for your concerns, yeah, that particular event will surely happen, only if you meet the conditions, which I know that you know it already, right? Oh, yes of course. Then about the pollution. Unko asked worriedly. Yes, it's a personal level. But note that your comfort status can't get rid of the pollution completely since the pollution itself is a part of that world's background and an important factor of that world's upcoming story. But rest assured since your comfort status will find a way where the pollution can still stay while also not affecting your everyday life. I see, then I will be fine with that. Unko said with a sigh of relief. The god raises his hand again in the air and one of the magic circle, hovering around the crystal have disappeared. Now only 3 magic circles are left, same for his wishes. Granted. Now, state your third wish. The god said as he finished granting Unko's second wish. I have a question first. Does having a lot of money includes on the comfortable status? Unko said with a hopeful expression. No, it's a material level. I see, that's sad. Then is having unlimited amount of money a possible wish? Unko with an even more hopeful expression. Of course it does. The god said with a plain expression. The moment he heard this, a smile have appeared on Unko's face, but it immediately disappeared as he heard God's next words. But as I said, the wishes are not perfect. Having an unlimited amount of money has its ups and downs, but in your case, you'll surely have a problem with this if you choose to have an unexplainable unlimited amount of money. But, it's your decision. Sigh I see, then I guess it's a bad option. Alright, for my third wish, I wish to have a lot of money. Like tons of money. At least an amount that will not be extinguished even if I continue spending a large amount for the next 15 years. As Unko said this, he already have an expression that is clearly saying if what he just said is possible. Of course it's possible. Owning a large amount of illegal money will go against your comfortable status, so you don't have to worry, your identity will make out for it. The god reassured the anxious Unko. I see, thank you very much. The god raised his hands again and the same thing happened. The third magic circle broke and only 2 are left. The god faces Unko again and asks for his fourth wish, but unlike the earlier, Unko didn't say anything immediately. He just keeps pondering as he thinks of some things within himself. After a whole minute of thinking, he finally faced the god in front of him. So I can't take the wishes with me in the new world, right? But what if use a wish for that to happen, is that possible? Unko asked a question while still pondering about something. Yes. It is possible. Then, is. After that, Unko did nothing but ask a bunch of questions about the wishes and the god answers all of his questions truthfully. He didn't say his wishes immediately as he keeps asking a bunch of questions. And finally, after 2 minutes of doing nothing but asking question, Unko finally decided to face the god with a satisfied expression. Okay, so for my fourth wish. End of the 3rd chapter. Smile. 35 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Evrabonzz. Download app now. Chapter 4. In this world, in the year 2138 AD, there was a term, DMMORPG. That word was an acronym for Dive Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. These games were played by connecting a dedicated console to the brain via a neuronal nano interface, an intracerebral nano-computer network, created from the fusion of cyber and nanotechnology. These were games that allowed one to enter a virtual world and experience it as though it were real life. This system was originally made in the year 2079. The purpose of its creation was for the military. And then it was developed for the field of medicine, but the cost was absurdly high. It was then simplified after 10 years and now every home has it. Although many techniques were created by net shops and tourist sites were used to lower the development costs, it still took many years before the very first DMMORPG was born. Increment. After the very first DMMORPG was created, many more have followed throughout the years. And among the myriad of DMMORPGs that throned the market, one of them stood head and shoulders above the other. DMMORPGs. Yggdrasil. This game had been painstakingly developed and released 12 years ago, in 2126. Compared to other DMMORPGs of the time, Yggdrasil's selling point was player freedom. It had over 2,000 basic and advanced job classes. Every class had a maximum of 15 levels, and so in order to reach the overall level cap of 100, one would need to take at least 7 different classes. However, players could take as many classes as they wanted as long as they met each class's prerequisites. A player could even take 100 classes at level 1 each, although that was very inefficient. As such, in this system, it was virtually impossible to make identical characters unless one was deliberately trying to do so. In addition, one could use various creator tools to fully customize one's armor, weaponry, flavor text, appearance, and other cosmetic settings. A vast playing field awaited its players. There were 9 worlds in total: Asgard, Alfheim, Vanaheim, Nidavellir, Midgard, Jotunheim, Niflheim, Helheim, Muspelheim. It boasted a massive world, numerous classes, and freely customizable appearances. These features ignited the creative spirits of its Japanese players and sparked what would later be known as a stylistic revolution. So popular was it that whenever the word DMMORPG was mentioned in Japan, listeners would immediately think of Yggdrasil. Increment. Tokyo, Japan. Year 2125. At this time, the night streets of Tokyo is really busy and crowded. You can see some people are just having fun, some are just walking around or just passing by, and some are shopping or buying some items for their family, friends, or just for themselves. It is the year before the creation of the phenomenal DMMORPG, Yggdrasil. In the current and past years, DMMORPG has already made an impact on the everyday life of every Japanese people, even before the release of the Yggdrasil. But still, the impact that it made is still incomparable to the one that Yggdrasil will make in the next upcoming years. It is already midnight. The streets are less crowded and few people are to be seen. Some stores and buildings have already closed, a few only are still open. On the secluded area of a certain public park, where no people are to be seen currently, you can see a teenage boy, laying on the grassy ground, looking unconscious. After a couple of minutes, the boy started to wake up and immediately stand up and look around his surroundings. After a minute of looking around, the boy sighed in relief for some reason. Well, good thing I was transported in a very convenient place at a very convenient time. Looks like I was worried about nothing. Of course, this boy that was standing alone and talking to himself like a crazy man would do in the most secluded part of a public park was no other than Unko himself. At first, he was really worried that he will be spawned in the middle of the city in midday, as he just chooses the Tokyo, Japan as his spawn place and the specific date was unclear. He actually forgot to tell the exact place. That's why when he regained his consciousness, he immediately stands up and looks at his surroundings just in case the things that have happened were the things he wishes to not happen. But due to his comfort status, he was transported in a place where no one will be able to see him. Just next to where Unko was standing. He saw a briefcase lying on the ground. It has a plain matte black exterior and it doesn't have any noticeable features or design, it's just smooth and very ordinary looking briefcase. I guess this is mine. Unko walks towards it and pick up the briefcase. He goes towards a near bench and place down the briefcase. He opens it and looks at the contents inside it. Inside, there's a stack of documents, a bunch of ids, cards, a single 10,000 yen bill with a small note above it, and many strange things that he couldn't recognize. He took the note above the 10,000 yen bill and read what's written on it. On the note, a certain address was written with a message that says, the rest was on the red cabinets. Of course, this is a part of his wish. Or to be exact, a benefit of his comfort status. The things inside the briefcase were obviously the things that proves his identity as a citizen of this world. He. Finally. After all these years, I can finally escape my curse. Unko said with a very happy and dramatic tone as he picked a single item inside the briefcase. It's an ID. His ID. Of course, this is not the one that made Unko happy but the contents of it. If someone were to read the ID, the name beside his picture was different, it wasn't Unko anymore, but instead, it was Yuki. His name on his ID was Yuki Takahashi. This what makes him so grateful and almost made him shed into tears. Sniff, I guess that having a name that means sh*t won't make my life comfortable. He's extremely grateful for his comfort status. For the very first time in his life, he can finally say his name proudly without getting laugh at his face. It was like in a game, the moment he saw this, he quickly throws away his garbage name and equipped his new one. He doesn't hold any attachments to his old name. He was planning on changing his name anyway back before he died the moment he earned some extra money. For him, it was the most sh*t-tiest name that could ever think by the most sh*t-tiest parents ever was. That argument was supported by all the people he have ever encountered. Starting from now on, no one shall call me Poop. As my new name, Yuki, shall take over the world mawuhahaha, Unko said with a creepy voice as he continued laughing until a mosquito flew inside his mouth that causes for him to cough several times. So just like a thing, he quickly throws away his name and uses the new one on the spot. And also, I'll be using that name starting from now on. At that moment, after getting rid of the mosquito inside his mouth, he felt like he was reborn. He felt like he was a new person. While standing with his arms wide open and repeatedly saying his name like a madman would do. An imaginary light was surrounding him in his mind. He really felt like the stars were also rejoicing with him at this very moment. Clears throat. Wait, I completely forgot. After Yuki said that, he opened up his mouth and inhaled a large amount of air. Well, the air looks pretty normal. I wonder why is that? Yuki said and looked towards the sky after that, and there, some of his questions have been answered immediately. A dome. In the sky, even though it's already dark, a dome made of what looks like a glass had covered up the whole sky. It spread wide across the sky that Yuki can't even see where it ends. I guess this what keeps the pollution out, huh? After a minute of admiring the glass dome in the sky, he finally decided to close the briefcase and walk away. It didn't take him that long until he finally got out of the public park he was in. I can't believe that the year on this world was already 100 years advanced compared to where I came from, but it still looks quite the same. Only a few things have changed. No flying cars, no robots everywhere, no person with a jetpack flying above the sky. It's just that, the buildings look quite flashy and advanced, but other than that, it's all surprisingly normal. I'm disappointed. After pondering for a moment, he goes towards the nearest sidewalk and waits for a taxi. He didn't wait long until he got himself a taxi. After that, he gets in and he told the driver to go to the address that was written on the note. It only takes a 30 minutes trip before they reach the destination that was written on the address. It was quite a bit far from the park where he came from, but due to the futuristic highway system where everyone can avoid causing traffic, they arrived earlier than to be expected. And also, Yuki gets to know from the taxi driver that the glass dome above the sky covers the whole city of Tokyo, and every major city in Japan has this. Of course, Yuki made some strange remarks so he wouldn't look suspicious while asking this, since no normal person would ask something like this. So after Yuki pays the fees and got out of the taxi, he now faces the massive building in front of him. The building might look different and fancier than the ones where he came from, but one can see from the outside that it looks like a residential apartment building. He looks at the note again and sees that he need to go on the 25 feet floor as it was where the pointed address is. He proceeded to go there using the elevator, and once he arrives, he begins searching the code of the room that was written on the note. It should be this one, right? It didn't take a while when he finally saw the door where there is D345 written on it. It was the same apartment code that was written on the note. Yup, it must be this one. Now what to do? He looks for a doorbell and presses it. He waited for a minute but no one answered. He tried it again just in case, but still, no one responded. Okay, no one seems to be inside. Yuki pondered for a while. He looks at the door handle and decided to try and open it, but as he expected, it was locked. He saw a black box beside the door that is glowing red. He inspects it and saw that you can swipe something in it. Ah. Right. He opened the briefcase again and rummaged the things inside. There, he saw nothing that looks like a card, but through all the things he saw, only one item has the same size and can only fit at the swiping box. He tried to swipe it and the black box generated a noise and the red light in it changed into green. It worked, I guess. He grabs the handle of the door and tries to open it. TUD. Oh, it opened. When it opened, he takes the briefcase and goes inside. The light opened automatically after he enters. Since he knows that no one is here, he just goes straight inside. Whoa. When he saw the whole apartment, he was amazed. Each and every part of it was amazing and beautiful. The apartment was also big compared to the one he used to live. The whole apartment was complete and full of appliances. He recognized some of it, but he doesn't have a single idea on how to use the others that screams they were from the future. He tried to ignore it for now and check all the rooms. When he entered the bedroom, he saw 3 big red cabinets. Oh, the big red cabinet. Right, it was mentioned on the note. He walked towards the cabinets and opened it one after another. Holy shiz. When he opened it all, he was surprised the contents inside it. He saw a piled stock of money that filled every space inside the big cabinets. It's a sight that no one would think that they will ever witness in their entire life. I can literally shower myself with money, ha ha ha. I said a lot of money, but I guess he really gives me a lot, huh? Of course, this is not all the money he wished for. Inside the briefcase, he noticed some cards that has a bank names in it, so he made a guess that some of his wished money has been automatically transferred and put into some bank accounts, cause he knows that even though the money he has in front of him are many, he is pretty sure that this amount wouldn't last even for a couple of years. Sniff, sniff. Ah, priorities comes first. He closed the cabinet after a moment of staring at it. He decided to go and check the closet. There are no clothes in it, but he saw some bathrobes. He grabs a bathrobe and goes to the bathroom and proceeds to take a shower as he felt that he was a bit sticky and smelly from laying on the ground for God knows how long. Increment, 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 increment. After he finished taking a shower, he goes back to bed and lay down. He did nothing but stare at the ceiling and think the things that he has gone through. So many things that have happened today. I've been assaulted by a truck, crane, and a sports car, then gets killed by an explosion from a satellite that comes from God knows where. Then I met a god that gave me wishes. And then, here I am. Sigh, I'm too tired already to worry about all the things around me. I think I'll just leave all that to my tomorrow self. Good night, me. You're really awesome, said Yuki as he slowly closes his eyes, but after a moment he opened his eyes again and looked around the room. Wait, how do I turn off the lights here anyway? Again. This is a parallel world. And also, drop some power stones and support my other work. Evrabonzz creators' thoughts. 82 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 5. Tomorrow morning. Yuki wakes up early and takes a bath and eat breakfast after that. But unlike his usual routine, he didn't go outside and do his daily morning jog. Instead, he sits in front of the computer. He wants to gather information first about the world he was in and figure out everything that he needs to know about himself before doing all the things he wanted to do. Learning every necessary thing is not easy and will take a lot of time. Yuki even does nothing sometimes but stay inside his apartment and sit in front of the computer while surfing the web for the whole day. Little by little, as time passes by, he already has the basic information that he needed to know, such as the places that he might need to go in the future, or the important events that have happened and might happen around him. He also found out that the money he has right now is some kind of heritage from his long-lost grandfather. The information about this is more complex, but that's basically the surface of it. He also saw that the Yuki of this world has some relatives, but all of them are pretty distant relatives, so Yuki didn't give any more attention to them since they are no different than strangers really. Yuki also searched for the informations of the things that he might need to use right now and in the future. Not just that, but also many other more. But Yuki knows that this is not enough, that he still needs to collect as much information as possible, especially if it's connected or related about the MMORPGs that were planned to be released in the next upcoming years. But regarding about the Yggdrasil, there's not much information that has been released in the web yet. Only some speculations and rumors, but this is not useful enough. While Yuki is doing some web surfing, he also ordered already a neural nano interface machine set, TROF Online. The neural nano interface is a human brain augmentation machine that allows your brain to function as a supercomputer. This interface is used to play MMORPGs by the people of this world. And, as it sounds cool to type it whenever I need to say it, it's too long for me. I will only call it NNI from now on, unless it was needed to be mentioned in dialogue. The NNI machine that Yuki ordered is a MMORPG set version. It means that all the things that is much better or the things that you need if you want to play a MMORPG is already in it. It includes a neuro terminal, a place where you can properly use the machine without moving. It is much better and safer compared to the others and specially made for MMORPG players. There are many more things that are included in the package, such as VR helmet, data chip, neuro core, and so on, and so forth. Increment. Of all the things that Yuki has searched, the first thing he searches for is the map of the area around him, as he needs to know where are the places he needs to go whenever he wants something. Yuki didn't spend the following days by just staying inside his apartment. He was also going outside from time to time to buy all the things that he needed, such as clothes, accessories, foods and groceries, all the necessities and things that he wants and needed in his life, since if someone were to count out the appliances that is already on Yuki's apartment when he first arrived, then it's pretty much empty. So after the first day passes, he spent his following days, buying all the things and stuff he wants. The things that he didn't manage to have in his past life are now being bought out by Yuki without having any kind hesitation. In short, he was having the time of his life. But that doesn't mean that he was recklessly spending his money on everything that his eyes will land on. Just like what Yuki says to himself. That he will only spend a big amount of his money once the Yggdrasil starts. Because the more money you invest in the game, the more powerful you are. It is literally a pay-to-win game. Increment. It's already been 2 weeks since Yuki was transported into this world. Nothing beats an early shower in the morning. Right now, Yuki was coming out of the bathroom wearing nothing but a towel to cover his lower part. He just finished taking a shower, as it was his daily routine before making and eating breakfast. As he was drying his hair using a towel, he felt like he was hitting something hard behind his neck. It's been 2 weeks already, but I can't get used to the feeling of having this thing on the back of my neck. If you look at the upper center back of his neck, you could see a neural port in it. A neural port is the one that will allow you to connect on the NNI machine using a neural cord. Once it's connected to the NNI system, it will proceed on brain augmentation, which will allow your brain to function as a supercomputer and connect it to a proprietary console. Yuki already had the neural port ever since he was transported to this world. He just didn't notice it on day one, as he was too tired and too distracted to notice it. Today was supposed to be the day that the NNI machine package that he ordered was supposed to be delivered. But while he is having his breakfast, the doorbell suddenly rang. He opened the door and saw 2 people standing in front. Oh, hello sir. Are you Mr. Takahashi? Yes, my name is Yuki Takahashi. That's my name, Yuki. Yuki proudly and shamelessly repeated his name twice. He was too happy that he didn't need to hide his name anymore whenever he was asked. Okay, Well, nice to meet you, Mr. Yuki Takahashi. We are here to deliver a package that was sent to your address. Please confirm that this is yours. The delivery man shows him the information about the package. Ah, yes. I ordered it. Usually, a delivery package was being delivered using a drone. But with this kind of packages, they are sometimes being delivered personally if the customer asked for installation service, because some items like this are needed to be installed by some people from the manufacturers so it can work properly and be installed safely. But of course, if the customer says that they don't have to, they will not push it. It's still on the customer's choice. Yuki let them in and have it set up in one of the rooms that he has prepared already. It was supposed to be a spare room that most people turn into a guest room, but since having a guest in his apartment has a really lower percentage of happening, not to mention that someone will actually try to spend a night here. For Yuki, that has no plan of interacting with some of the people outside, then that's pretty much impossible. So without any hesitation, he decided to just use this as his gaming room. But even though he called it gaming room, it's not as fancy and grandiose if you compare it to others that also has a room that is called a gaming room. Doesn't have any wallpapers, anime figurines, or any different colors of LED lights in each corner of the room. It literally only had a single computer and the NNI machine that is still being installed in it. The looks of the room is plain and bland, but it's pretty clean and neat. Some might say that it's very minimalistic. But even if the room looks so boring and bland, the only two equipment that it has in is really one of the best. The supercomputer and the NNI machine that Yuki has are both super expensive that no normal person in this world could have. Increment, 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 increment. It takes a couple of hours before the NNI was completely installed and set. It's already been tested and proved running to its full capacity and doesn't have any problems. Yuki just signed a few papers and stuff that was given to him by the two delivery men. The two of them immediately leaves after that. Yuki even offered them some snacks, but they refused and say that they still have some items that needed to be delivered. After some exchanges of courtesy, the two delivery men proceeded to leave and Yuki was finally left alone. Out of excitement, Yuki didn't wait anymore and immediately run back to his gaming room after he closed the front door. Hehe, finally. Let's see. Yuki read the instructions manual for a little bit just to make sure he didn't miss something. He already knows how to use the NNI machine. When he was gathering some information on the internet, it was one of the first things that he has searched for. Yosh, looks like it's still the same. Now, let's give this baby a test ride. Yuki takes the VR helmet and wears it on his head. It covered half of his head, but the lower part was still exposed. He lay down on the neuro terminal and make himself comfortable. He grabs the neural cord and points it behind his neck. He used his other hand to locate the center of the neural port where the cord was supposed to go in. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Actually, even though Yuki has already searched for every information about the NNI machine, he was still nervous about putting inside the cord on his neural port. He was too nervous. Come on, you've prepared for this, come on. Inhale. Exhale. All right. Here goes nothing. He stays still for a moment, then after a minute he straightened his back and put the tip of the cord inside the neural port. He slowly slid it in and stopped halfway. He sucked in a large amount of air and for the very final one. Linkusutatu. Then, he pushes it all in. Drop some stones. For God's sake. Evrabonzz creators' thoughts. 74 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 6. The moment that the neural cord was completely connected to his neural port, Yuki felt like something is crawling in his whole body, but it only lasted for an instant, but the weird feeling crawls back and stayed inside his head. He can feel it. It feels like something is tickling his whole brain. It keeps going on, but suddenly, his vision started to light up. When he put the VR helmet in his head, he can't see anything as his vision is getting blocked, but now he can see. It's like he is not even wearing a VR helmet, he can't even feel the VR helmet at all. He can see the whole room, but the only difference is, multiple HUD windows are floating in front of him. It has different icons and logos in it and many other more features at the side of it. It was like you were looking at a big computer, but instead of a normal desktop design where there is nothing but an icon and logo, it's more like a PlayStation style. There are so many choices of windows. Judging by the icon of every window, Yuki can guess what are they for. You don't need any mouse or controller, you can control anything using your hands. He keeps on scrolling and after a while, he stopped. He tried to reach the window with a note icon and press it with his finger. Blink. Suddenly, everything around him changed. Everything went dark, but not long after that, he slowly gained vision. It's like slowly opening your eyelids. When he completely regained his vision, he was not in his room. He was on a different room, he's still wearing the same shirt. He tried to touch his cheeks and he felt it, but not that clear. It seems that when it comes to the feeling sensory, it was not that clear. Like you know that you are touching yourself but you can't feel it clearly, but it's still mind-blowing for him. Awah. He was too amazed by this experience. He was like here but he's really not in here at the same time. Yuki tried to stand up and jump repeatedly. He was testing if he can really freely move. He tried to observe the whole place he was in and from what he can see, it looks like he was at some kind of karaoke place. He walks towards the nearest table and picks up the mic. The moment he picked up the mic, a HUD screen suddenly appears in front of him that shows a list of multiple songs. Hey, okay. Now I know what kind of place this is. Yuki stays there and enjoys his time for about a half hour until he decided to get out. After a half hour of fooling around, he finally decided to start his plan. The reason he bought the NNI machine as early as possible is to get familiar with the feeling of playing a DMMORPG. He needs to get himself familiar somehow and enhanced his control skills so moving inside the game will feel like a natural thing to do. But that's not all. Since Yggdrasil is a fighting genre, he needs to learn how to fight first before he hops onto it. He doesn't even have any idea on how to properly hold a sword or fight while maintaining your stance. Not just in sword but in different types of weapons. He knows that it will be developed naturally as you play the game but it will be an advantage if you learn already beforehand. His NNI system is connected to his supercomputer, that's why it has already a bunch of data even though it's new. He already downloaded a bunch of DMMORPGs in it that he can play. He swiped the icons again and stopped at a certain window that has the title of Shadow Battle. He reaches his hand towards the icon and presses it by using his finger. Blink. Like what happened at first, everything became black. Then when he regains his vision again, he saw that he was at a completely different place. He was at some kind of dojo. It looks like a traditional Japanese dojo. Suddenly, while Yuki is busy looking around, a screen appeared in front of him and it shows divided by 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 play, training, weapon practice. Select your desired weapon. Versus not. Beginner. Experienced. Master. Immortal. Player vs player. Unarmed versus unarmed. Increment. Weapon versus weapon. Increment. Freedom. Increment. Tournament. Increment. Divided by 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 divided by. Okay then. So I can go against someone in real life or just with a bot. The bot might be a good start but I'll just do the training first. He selects the training and a punching bag suddenly falls down from the ceiling and a big shelves that contain different types of weapons appeared on the left side of the room. He also noticed that he was now wearing clothing that looks like a judogi. He feels like he can move better with these clothes. He walks near the punching bag and gives it a light punch. Thud. He can't still get over to the feeling that everything felt a bit real, although when it comes to the feeling sensory, it feels a bit off, it's still impressive. Like he was really here, doing some karate stuff. He decided to give it another couple of hits. After a while, he discovered that he was still affected by real-life reflexes. Even though he knows that everything that he is doing was just in his mind, he can't do anything or move as he please. He can't do any kick like Bruce Lee or do some cartwheel and some acrobatic stunts. But he knows that he will get better as time goes by, he just needs knowledge about fighting and applies it to a real, virtual fighting situation. He just needs to keep things going and eventually, he will naturally learn it and adapt it into anything. Increment, 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 increment. After a couple of hours of practicing some punches and kicks, Yuki also tried some different types of weapons. He also notices that even in MMORPGs, the weapon has some weights. It's not that heavy, and the weight it has is probably not the same it has in real life. It was greatly reduced. They must have put it there to just feel the reality of every weapon, that you will feel that if you are holding a sword, you will feel that you are swinging something and not just like swinging some imaginary weapon. Overall, Yuki has no problems with it. Increment, 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 increment. For the whole week, Yuki spends most of his time inside his gaming room, playing and diving inside the NNI. He was doing only two things for most of his time. First, he was watching some video tutorials on the internet about learning how to move and fight like a real professional fighter. If you want to learn fast, the very best idea to do that was inside the NNI. While using NNI, it is making your brain to function as a supercomputer. You can learn things inside faster compared to the normal means. Second, after he learns things, he is applying it and practicing all of it on the training ground. He keeps on doing all of that simultaneously for the whole week. After a week's amount of hard work, he feels like he became better than usual. His moves are more decent, his punch and kicks are not that shabby anymore. He feels like his whole form looks a bit of a fighter now. He opened up the console and select the versus bot and choose the beginner as his difficulty level. He pressed play and he was suddenly transported to a wide circle arena. The whole place was covered with bamboo trees like they were in the middle of a forest. In far front of him, there's a black person standing still and straight. Its looks are completely black, not just normal black but pitched black, whole over its body. You can't see any part of him that isn't covered with black. It also has no features. Wow, this is literally a MMORPG version of Shadow Fight that I used to play back then. And I will call his opponent Shadow. Above him, a HUD screen suddenly appears with some text in it. Conditions to win. Make your enemy fall to the ground. That's it. Prepare for the upcoming battle. Get ready. Suddenly a voice rang out throughout the arena. It sounds the same to the voice you usually heard in a game like Tekken before a round starts. 3, 2, 1. Fight. The moment that the announcer said, "Fight," the shadow man that is in far front of him suddenly rushed towards Yuki's direction. Who? You're approaching me? Instead of running Awa. Just kidding. When the shadow was already at the range, it throws a punch towards Yuki. Yuki manages to dodge it by stepping sideways, but it throws a punch again and again and again. Hey. Easy there. Yuki manages to dodge it all by jumping and leaning backward, but when he saw that he was already near the very edge of the arena, he decided to push and change his direction. I see why this is just a beginner. Unlike what I saw on the internet, it's not doing any flashy moves. It's just throwing some punches and kicks. If it's all just this, then I'll win this. Yuki decided to jump and run away to create a great distance between him and the shadow. This gives him a moment to think and also gain some momentum for whatever he is planning to do next. The shadow man immediately runs towards Yuki and throws away a heavy punch. Yuki easily dodges it by leaning sideways. He didn't give the shadow a time to react as he takes this chance to do a light blow on his body. Yuki's hit managed to connect and made the shadow step back a little bit, but Yuki immediately closed the gap by dashing forward and following his attack with an uppercut to the shadow's jaw. He was in a lower position, so his uppercut did more damage than usual since he gains momentum from the very bottom. After the uppercut, the shadow was seemed to be stunned by it and took a couple of steps back, but Yuki didn't let it recover and dash forward again while still keeping his body lower. When Yuki was already in range, Yuki throws a punch towards the shadow's face, but even if the shadow was still in the semi-stunned state, it manages to block the attack by raising its arm. Yuki's punch was blocked, but Yuki immediately follows it up with a solid calf kick that disturbed the balance and form of the shadow. Yuki after that, gain enough time to step back little, have all his weight transfer on his one foot. Ha! And with a shout, he did a Spartan-like kick towards the shadow that successfully connected in its chest that greatly pushed the shadow backward. It almost falls towards the floor but manages to recover his balance at the very least. But Yuki didn't stop there and run towards the shadow at full speed again. The moment that Yuki gained enough momentum and force from the speed, he leaps towards the shadow and throws a heavy punch in its face. Combined with the speed and the force that is caused by the leap, the power of that punch was multiplied by a couple of times. Hop. Dag. Since the shadow was still on the state of recovering its form and balance, it didn't manage to notice and dodge Yuki's attack. When the punch connected to the shadow's face, the shadow was thrown to the floor like a puppet that loses its strings. Player win. After that, a voice ranged out and after a few notifications, Yuki was teleported back to the training dojo. Haha, that was really fun. I still need to keep this up until I beat the master level at least and proceed to the PvP to test the things I have learned in a real battle with the real person. Yosh, let's start again. Yuki said as he tightened his fist. After that, Yuki decided to have another rematch with the bot for a couple of times before deciding to finally call it quits and have a rest for the day. Increment, 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 increment. Just like what Yuki planned, he keeps on doing his training of learning and fighting simultaneously for every day in the entire 2 weeks. After all of that, he finally manages to defeat the bot with a master level of difficulty. It was 2 weeks worth of pure hard work. After 2 weeks he finally manages to be a bit proficient on hand-to-hand fighting. His plan was to practice and train until he was on the level that he can defeat the master level bot, and after that, he can only go for a PvP match to truly test his hard work on a real, virtual person. Some time skips. And at last, the time has come. He finally managed to beat master level bot. He can finally do a PvP. But Yuki didn't rush things out and decided to log out for today since he wants a fresh mindset when battling against an opponent that has no fighting pattern unlike the bots. So he decided to rest for today. Now, he just needs to wait for the real battle to start tomorrow to see if he can really beat a human already when it comes to a real virtual fight or not. Stones, stones. Keep them coming. Evrabonzz creators' thoughts. 83 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 7. Just like the usual, Yuki did all the things he always does in the morning before he proceeds to do all the things he wanted to do. After all that, he proceeds to go to his gaming room and dive into his NNI machine. He logged into the game that he always play. The Shadow Battle. A game where you can fight different players in one arena. You can fight using any weapon that you want or just by nothing but your fists. Yuki has been playing this for 3 weeks already and he is genuinely enjoying this game. He is not only playing this game because he just needs to learn how to fight but because he also enjoyed playing it. He can fight freely in this game, can do some stunts that he can't do in real life, and he gets to fight with someone, literally for nothing but just pure fun. Or maybe not since he has yet to fight a real person. This day was the day that Yuki is going to fight at a PvP battle for the very first time. He did some warm-ups in the training ground for about a couple of minutes and finally decided to do it after a bunch of shenanigans. Alright, let's freaking do this. He opens up the console and press the PvP, and choose the battle mode where they are both unarmed, him and his enemy. After that, multiple conditions has also popped up. There are so many ways to win a round. You can choose a condition that you will win if you make your enemy fall to the ground, the same condition on Yuki's first battle with a bit, or if you manage to land a solid hit to the head first before your opponent. There are so many types of conditions. But even though there's so many of them, only one condition is commonly used in PvP battle types and that is, an HP-based battle condition. Just like what the name implied, both the player will be given an equal amount of 100 HP. Each successful attack will decrease the HP based on the part where they landed the hit on. For the head, the HP will be reduced by 20 for each landed attacks. The upper body has 8, the lower body has 5 and 3 for the arm. The arm has the least amount of decrease in the HP once it is hit, that's why most players uses their hands to block the attack of their opponents to reduce the damage. And also, throughout the weeks that Yuki played this game, he discovered that the only avatar that you can use in this game is a black shadow. Basically the same appearance that the bots has. So you wouldn't see the real appearance of your opponent and the same for you to them. Yuki chooses the same condition and press play after it. A queuing time pops out in front of him and it only lasted for 3 seconds to finally found a match. Yuki was suddenly teleported in the same circle arena that has a lot of bamboo trees around it. In front of him, a shadow man was standing, but unlike the bot that was just there standing still, the shadow in front of him is making a bunch of gestures. Yuki didn't quite understand the meaning of the gestures so he decided to just wave towards his opponent. Not long after that, a notification pops out above them. Conditions to win. First to make their Opponent's HP 2. 0. A chat box suddenly appears in front of Yuki. Enemy. I'll beat the shit out of your ass, UFC King Weaktard. Yuki smiled and thought. Yeah, I knew it. I'll definitely encounter something like this at least once in a while. It's an inevitable decease in every community, what did I even expect? Sigh, these kids, really? Yuki just shook his and thought how silly this is as he replied in the most mature way he could. You. Yak, keep barking for me, dog. Enemy. Mother asterisk CKER. You. Yeah, I just did your mom last night. Immediately after exchanging some intellectual words, the voice that will signal for them to start has been heard. Get ready. 3, 2, 1. Fight. And I'll be calling his opponent, Shadow, as well here. Yuki this time takes the lead and rushed towards his opponent. When he got closer enough, he throws a light punch, but the Shadow dodged it by leaning backward and throw a counter punch towards Yuki. Yuki saw this and immediately crouched to avoid the punch. He uses his position to rush towards the Shadow and tackle him on the ground and position himself above to pin the Shadow down on the floor. He took advantage of being at the top to immediately deliver a barrage of punches in the body and face of the Shadow. The Shadow tried to block the punches with his arms, but he failed to block some of the punches as he was focusing to cover his face to avoid getting hit there. Pug. -8. Pug. -3. Pug. -3. Pug. -3. Pug. -8. Pug. -8. Pug. -3. The Shadow keeps taking a barrage of punches and his HP was continuously decreasing. His HP was already near at 50 and still decreasing as time goes by. The Shadow knows that he needs to get out of this position to avoid the further loss of his HP. As Yuki keeps on punching non-stop, the Shadow waited for a punch on his head to come, and when Yuki was about to punch towards the Shadow's head, the Shadow opened its arms wide and leaned its head to the opposite direction. Yuki's punch missed the head and hit the floor instead. The Shadow didn't waste this chance and immediately used his left hand to grab Yuki's arm and the right arm to grab Yuki's shoulder. The Shadow rolled his body and threw Yuki aside. Although this is just a light throw and Yuki didn't receive any damage from it, it was enough for him to break out on his position and roll towards the opposite direction and jump back to create distance between himself and Yuki. But Yuki didn't let him go as he pleased as he immediately stands up and rushes towards the Shadow to immediately close the distance, seemingly to not give him any time to even breathe. The Shadow was surprised by Yuki as he sees that Yuki was like a wild animal that keeps on attacking without rest. When the Shadow saw that Yuki was already closing to him, he tried to meet him head-on with a throw of punch. The Shadow tried to fake a punch by throwing a light punch, then if Yuki dodges it, then he will immediately follow it up with a heavy punch to Yuki's face. Tud. 3. But instead of dodging his punch, Yuki blocked it with his right arm, and counter a punch with his left arm towards the Shadow's face. The Shadow didn't have time to think as he immediately blocks it with his other arm. Pug. 3. But the moment he blocked Yuki's punch, Yuki rotated his arm and grabbed both of the Shadow's arm, then suddenly pull him closer towards him and deliver a knee kick in the Shadow's body. Tug. 8. This made the Shadow took a step back. But Yuki didn't give him time to rest up as he immediately follows it up with a reverse roundhouse kick that successfully hit the Shadow in its head and throws him off to the ground. Tag. 20. Thud. As he was thrown to the ground, Yuki immediately pins him down again to the ground and deliver a couple of punches, but this time. Pug. 20. Pug. 3. Pug. 20. But this time, the Shadow was not fast enough and failed to block the punches as Yuki managed to hit his head 2 times, which causes his HP to decrease down to a flat 0. The moment that the Shadow's HP reached down to 0, Yuki and the Shadow was suddenly teleported back to their starting positions. Suddenly above him, a screen appears that had a winner written on it and a loser on the other side. While he was looking at it, a chat box appears in front of him again. Enemy. FCK your mom, FCK your dad, you are FCLING idiot, got to hell. BELELELELEL dumbass. Enemy player has been disconnected. Yuki laughs while reading. What a sore loser. After that, he just shrugged this off while focusing back his attention on the performance chart. After that, Yuki was teleported back to the training ground. Sigh, looks like I performed quite a bit well than to be expected. Now I have 1 win on my match history. I think I will be able to fight stronger opponents as I play, so I should play PvP from now on until I'm confident enough. Yosh, let's do this again. Yuki enters again for another round of PvP match. He entered a few more times after each round and decided to end the day after that. He immediately logs out after that and goes towards the bed as he feels like he needs to sleep cause playing MMORPGs was really mentally exhausting. After he lazily slams his body on the bed, not long after that, he fell asleep. Oh, I forgot the R18 Biwahaha. Evrabonzz creators' thoughts. 81 comments 0 vote. Chapter 8. It's been 10 months since Yuki was transported in this world. During these past months, Yuki spends most of his time inside his gaming room and playing different types of DMMORPGs. At the first and second months, Yuki played the DMMORPG called Shadow Battle. He played that game to get himself familiar with the feeling of fighting someone inside the DMMORPG. Also, one of the reasons for playing that game was to learn how to wield and use different types of weapons. Well, he did not exactly learn all kinds of weapons, but he managed to learn at least 10 different types of weapons. Since it's the only type of weapons he felt comfortable with. It is also the types of weapons that he may plan to equip when he finally plays the Yggdrasil. He stopped playing the Shadow Battle after 2 months. But not long after he stopped playing that game, he played another DMMORPG after that. Yuki was doing this because he planned to play as much DMMORPG as he could before the end of the year. He wants to completely familiarize himself first on playing different genres of DMMORPG before he proceeds to play the Yggdrasil. In the third month, just the month after he stopped playing the Shadow Battle, he played another DMMORPG called Collateral Bullets. It's basically a shooting game. If his purpose on playing the Shadow Battle was to learn and familiarize himself on fighting someone with or without a weapon inside a DMMORPG, then, when it comes to this game, the Collateral Bullets, it was to greatly increase his accuracy skill in DMMORPG. In Yggdrasil, when the player starts casting their spell, an arcane eye or a magic sensor would have appeared in front of the caster. Afterward, the player could manipulate the sensor by sending their spell towards the desired area of their choosing to initiate its power or effect once they're ready to finish casting it. The player's right hand will control the sensor's movements, whilst their left hand directs the sensor's field of view. When it comes to skill casting, you really need to have a great focus and accuracy if you want your spell to hit. Especially if the target was moving, making it hit was extremely difficult. That's why a great skill and accuracy was needed. That's why Yuki decided to play this DMMORPG. Even though Yuki is not planning on using a gun and becoming an automaton once he played the Yggdrasil, it will still help him to greatly increase his accuracy inside the DMMORPG. He played the Collateral Bullets for a month and a half before he stopped playing it and jumping to another DMMORPG. This time, he played a DMMORPG called Average. Average was a popular DMMORPG. When he searched for the top DMMORPG at this year, it was on one of the tops. Even though it's just one of the popular DMMORPG, there's a specific reason on why did he choose to play this DMMORPG. It was because, in the novel, it was mentioned that some of Ainz's guildmates played this DMMORPG before they even played the Yggdrasil. It even comes to the extent that one of Ainz's guildmates almost quit Yggdrasil when he finds out that one of his guildmates is a higher rank than him in this game. The DMMORPG Average involved players building their own power suits, and then using them to fight each other. Moreover, there are players who could utilize their own respective character build through customization. This includes a balanced type with average armor or the kind that uses paper armor, high speed, and high firepower. Yuki tried playing this DMMORPG with a mindset that he will only play this for a month or two as he also needs to test the other DMMORPGs. But during his first month, he was hooked on the game immediately. He didn't even notice that it's been a month already. Time passes by and it's already 3 months, but Yuki was still playing the game. If it is a question if Yuki had already familiarized himself on playing in DMMORPGs, then he was already too familiar with it. He even learned already the things that he was planning to learn on different DMMORPGs just by playing Average alone. All the fighting and weapon techniques that he learned on the Shadow Battle were being applied on this DMMORPG as it also includes fighting and weapons, so he was getting better and better at it as time passes. His accuracy also improved tremendously as the opponents that he was shooting down in this game are much more faster and agile than the one in collateral bullets that he played before. His senses and controls inside the game became much better since playing this game needs a lot of mental effort and focus to play since playing this game was like watching a camera footage of someone running while an earthquake is happening. Literally, sometimes, you don't know what is even going on anymore as every fight became very chaotic once it starts. For almost 7 months, Yuki never played any other MMORPG but this. He was really hooked on it, but even though he really liked the game, he didn't spend even a single money on it. But sometimes, he was already on the verge of pulling out money, especially when he saw some newly updated equipment that has been released in the shops. Nobody can blame him as his equipment suck. He didn't spend even a single money even though he can. That's why he was so frustrated with himself. But the only thought that is keeping him positive through all this time was the moment that the official announcement of the release date of Yggdrasil was released publicly. This made him shout and almost jump through the roof. His frustrations were immediately replaced by excitement for the next year. That's why he manages to hold himself for not buying anything on average and just promised to himself that once the Yggdrasil was released, I swear that I will spam click every buy button of every goddamn cash item in that game, just you wait Yggdrasil. Daddy's coming. 88 comments 0 vote. Chapter 9. October 11, 2125. On this day, the official release date of the MMORPG, Yggdrasil was announced publicly. It will be released in the first week of the second month next year. Meaning, in February of the year 2126. Yuki was one of the people that saw this news first. Every time he finished playing and logged out on his NNI machine, he always checks the web if there is new news or information about the Yggdrasil. He is constantly refreshing the page to see the latest updates. And on the same day when he was repeatedly doing that, it happened. But a week has already passed after the official release date of the Yggdrasil was released, but only a few people and sites are talking about it. Well, it's really not that few and considered to be many. But Yuki was still a bit dumbfounded about this. Yggdrasil was described as the most popular MMORPG in this world, that if you say the word MMORPG here at Japan, most people will immediately think of Yggdrasil. So when the official date was released, Yuki was sure that it will cause an uproar on the local news and websites, but it has not. The level of attention that it was getting was no different on any other MMORPG that will be released. Yuki think about this and decided to search through the web about this matter, and he found out that this type of MMORPGs are pretty normal and generic already for the viewpoint of most peoples. Most people nowadays are into MMORPGs like what Yuki played in these past months. So when people saw this, they have probably thought that, oh, it's one of those, and not care about it. In the description of the Yggdrasil, the term, player freedom, was quite a popular term by most of any other MMORPGs. But all of them doesn't have an actual player freedom. That term is so used that people usually think if they ever saw that in any MMORPG's descriptions, they will immediately think that it's just a clickbait. Yuki guessed that Yggdrasil maybe became famous once it was released. It is when the people have already tried playing it and talked about how the game offers a literal player freedom. It is that time when it made an uproar to the gaming community. Yuki searched for more to see if there's still any information that he can gather on the web. He keeps on sitting in front of his computer for a couple of hours until he decided to take a rest and end the day with it. For 10 months of constantly playing MMORPGs, Yuki finally decided to take a break. He figures out that needs to have time to relax and rest before he jumps again on playing MMORPG since the release of Yggdrasil are already near. For the next 2 months, Yuki didn't play any MMORPGs or even use his NNI machine. He just spends his every day watching television, strolling outside, surfing on the web, and whenever he was bored and didn't want any of that, he just played normal online and offline games on his computer. Increment, 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 increment. Today was the first day of the new year, January 1st. While Yuki was doing nothing but continuously surfing on the internet, he suddenly received a notification. When he saw this, he immediately clicks on it and saw that he had a message. He quickly goes towards his mail, and when he first saw the sender of the mail, he got goosebumps. He saw that the sender of the message was one of the developers of the Yggdrasil. Back in the last year in the final month, before the end of the year. While Yuki was surfing the net, he saw that there is a new post on the developers' website of Yggdrasil. They posted that they will pick 1,000 people to play the Yggdrasil in advance in the first month of next year. When Yuki saw this, he gets so excited and wants to run outside, but he suppresses himself as he didn't want to waste any moment and immediately register himself. He was so fast that he was probably the very first person to register himself in it. He really wished that he will be chosen to join this first 1,000 batch of people that will play Yggdrasil in advance. Now, on the very first day of the first month of New Year, Yuki received a mail from one of the developers of the Yggdrasil. He immediately clicks on it and sees what is in the mail. Inside the mail was a message from the developers, saying that congratulations, you are chosen to be our first 1,000 batch of players to play the Yggdrasil in advance. Yes SSS. Thank God. When he saw this, he almost shed in tears. After all the wait, after all the things that he has done and all the preparation that he has gone through, he can finally play the Yggdrasil, at last. At the very bottom of the mail, there's an attached link to it, that will allow Yuki to go to a private site. The link was protected, so even if you copy the link or type it manually, you will not be able to access the site unless it was from this mail. Once Yuki accessed the site, he immediately see the download button. He didn't even waste a single damn second and immediately smashed it. The downloading didn't take that long as it was finished before Yuki can even realize it. The installation too was really quick since Yuki's supercomputer is a mythical beast. Once everything is over, he didn't wait for any more time and immediately dive into his NNI machine. In the selection of icons, a certain icon stands out the most on Yuki's vision. The Yggdrasil was displayed on that icon. He slowly reaches for that icon and gently presses it with his finger. Blink. A white screen window suddenly appears in front of him, showing a lot of things in multiple terms and conditions. He read a few of them, but not all of it. Then next, the rules. They heavily implied and mentioned the rules. These rules are not only for this game but for any other DMMORPGs. There are so many rules you have to follow and obey if you want to play a DMMORPG, such as R18 actions were considered to be strictly forbidden. Violators would be publicly listed on the game's official website, and their accounts would be deleted, or worse. Once the records of these R18 actions were publicly released, they might be punished for damaging moral culture and thus violating the Social Order Maintenance Act. As such, most people would consider these acts off limits. Additionally, one of the fundamental rulings which pertained to DMMORPGs was that forcing a player to participate in a game without permission could be treated as a form of cyber kidnapping. As such, forcing a player to test out a game in this manner was a prosecutable offense, especially if there was no way to force quit the game. It would not be unexpected for a company to receive fines or jail time for such things. If a situation arose where a player was not able to log out of the game, up to a week's worth of game activity could be stored in a legally mandated record. This would make it easy to prosecute the company for their violations of the law. So easy to say, being isekai'd in DMMORPG was not possible. There are so many things and stuff that was shown to him until he reached the login section. Since he doesn't have an account, he created an account first, then he goes back to the login section and put it in the newly created account. Yuki stopped for a moment and think about something first. After a minute, he looks at the login screen again and says, LINKUSUTATU. I mean. Fake cough. Log in. Then, everything around him changed. Check out my other novel, it will really help me. And also, stones. The power ones. Evrabonzz creators' thoughts. 70 comments 0 vote. Chapter 10. Just like any DMMORPGs that Yuki have played, it all started in black surrounding. After Yuki logged in, everything became black so suddenly. Then, he slowly regains his vision as usual. Is this? Where is this? When he completely regained his vision, he finds himself standing in the middle of a hall that looks like a royal palace. It was identical to the Ainz's base guild in anime but fancier and less scary. It was like a palace for royal kings and queens. On the edge of his vision, there are multiple windows floating and following his line of sight no matter where he looks. Yuki knows what this is, it was shown in the anime in the very first episode. It was one of the YGGDRASIL's game interface. At the right bottom of his vision, one can see a little box that was showing a little map of the area around him. The map was really limited and cannot be used for checking long-distant places. And at the very top, there's a long rectangular window that was displaying his current location inside the game. Waiting area. Oh, right. I forgot that there's something like this in Yggdrasil. The waiting area is a platform space where players can enter to meet friends before diving for a game session in Yggdrasil. The area acts similar to VR chat, back in Yuki's original world. It is where players can congregate via their own avatars. In this area, Yuki was not alone. There are at least 50 of them in this area. When Yuki arrived in the waiting room, there are at least 3 of them there. But as he checks the game interface, the number of people in the waiting room keeps on increasing as time goes by. But the only thing that Yuki noticed is that all the people around him are using the same avatars. They're all using an avatar that is shaped like a human, but it is all colored white. It is like the only avatar that all players can use in the game, Shadow Battle, that Yuki used to play, but instead of all black, it's all white. Yuki was also using the same avatar, so he guessed that this might be the default avatar if you are new in Yggdrasil and haven't created your own yet. He brought up his own console and found out that his guess was correct. He only found one thing in his console, and that is to make his very own avatar or character first before he can gain access to his console. Excuse me. But before he can press the button to start creating his own character, someone approached him. Yes. Yuki responded to the white person in front of him. And, just in case, that's not a racist word. What in front of him was a literal white person. Oh hey, is this also your first time in this kind of game? The white person asked. Judging from the demeanor of the white person in front of him, Yuki can already guess what does he want from him. Oh yeah, it's my first time too. I literally have no idea what am I supposed to do. Haha. Is that so? That's too bad. Alright, sorry for disturbing you, I'll go ahead there and try to find someone that knows this kind of game, haha, bye. Yeah. Yuki waved him goodbye and the white guy proceeded to run on the other direction to bother someone else. What is this? Sao. I'm sorry brother, but I'm not Kirito and I don't need any training montage right now. Yuki turns his focus again in the console and clicks the button so he can start creating his own character. Blink. Many introductions appeared in front of him and guides on how to properly create your own character. After reading it all, he proceeds to continue and 3 choices appeared in front of him. Humanoid race. A race that had a human-like appearance. Demi-human race. Variation of the human race with some bestial features. Heteromorphic race. Also known as inhuman or monster races. Most of these people would probably choose a human. I know that human is good and has a potential especially when maxed out, but I don't want that. I want those juicy racial classes. But if I'm correct, heteromorphic has a much better racial class stats than the demi-human. The discrimination about heteromorphic has yet to start too, so it's a pretty good start for me. If someone saw me, I think that they won't attack me if I say to them that I'm also a player. But if things go south, I'll just handle it, I'm confident about my abilities anyway. Yuki said as he fidgeted with the screen he was seeing. The discrimination that Yuki was talking is about piquing other players. In Yggdrasil, you will be penalized if you kill another player. Thus, in Ainz's time when he was still playing Yggdrasil, heteromorphic races were very unpopular because piquing a heteromorphic player doesn't give any penalty to the player that did it. Added to that was, in Yggdrasil, if you died in-game no matter what the reason was, you will drop one of your equipped items the moment you died in-game. And the rate of dropping your most important and powerful items and equipment is so high that most of the players in-game were not equipping all of their powerful items and equipment, except when they were about to raid a dungeon, since you can't clear a dungeon with a half-ass items. With the sum of all those reasons, all of that is what makes killing a heteromorphic better than a regular monster. Not that you will get more experience than the regular monsters, you will even get an item once you kill them, and you will also unlock a secret reward and class if you kill a certain number of heteromorphs. That's why in the future, discriminations about heteromorphic race will surely happen, since their role in-game was an enemy of all the players in the first place. He scrolls the list from the top to the very bottom just to see if there's some race in the game that he didn't know and much more powerful. But no, there's nothing new. It's all the same as what he thinks that would be on the list. That might be a reason, but these players around me are still nothing but noobs. Hee. Yuki selected the heteromorphic class and a long list of racial classes appears in front of him. Yuki scrolls the list and checks every single one of them. While he was doing this, he noticed that there are many people in the waiting room already. Most of the people in that 1000 that is picked to play the Yggdrasil earlier than others must have been here already. He also noticed that some of them have already created their own avatars and characters. See. I predicted it. Most of the players that Yuki saw has humanoid avatars such as elf, dark elf, rainbow eye, winged elf, sharp horn, winged human, and of course, the majority of them, humans. He did see a very few ones that pick the demohuman, but he saw no one that chooses the heteromorphic as their chosen race. Oh, they're already jumping in game. Yuki saw that some of the players that have finished creating their character have suddenly disappeared. Yuki thought that they already dived inside the game already, since it's your only destination after you finish creating a character. I think I should hurry up. He turned his attention to the list of racial classes again and searches for a particular class. Oh, found it. The insect class. I think that this is one of the most powerful classes, just like touch me. And for the species. Let's see. I think I will go for a sanguine mosquito. Then I can evolve myself as a sanguine queen later, and once I go towards the new world I can breed for a lot of different types of sanguine mosquitoes to fight for me, and I can literally do nothing and let them do all the work. Kyahaha, this probably the most OP class ever, yeah, let's go with this. Yuki said as he voices out his great plan that he was planning from the start. But of course, I'm kidding, who would think of something so stupid like that? Biwahaha. Then, Yuki continues to scroll until he spots his real target. Vampire. Yeah, this bad boy right here. In the anime, Shaltir was one of the strongest NPC in Nazarick. All of her stats were also balanced too. And that was just an NPC, if I play this right, I can literally do much better in the long run. He chooses the vampire without hesitation and an image of an ugly-looking creature appears in front of him. Goddammit. They said that vampire in Yggdrasil is really ugly, but I did not expect it to be like this. He look at the ugly image in front of him and think about something for a second. Looks aren't important right now anyway, so I think it's pretty fine, but if I want to make this guy a better looking one, I need a creator tool. But I don't have that yet, so I can't, but right now, I can still make this a bit more decent, or... Wait, why do I need to make it decent anyway? I'm supposed to be a scary monster, a creature that people will make a run for their money the moment they see my face. Yuki said as he keeps thinking of ways to make the Strigoi-like vampire scarier but less ugly. He wants it to be a thing that looks like it comes out of a horror movie or something. But he didn't also want to have a hideous and ugly-looking avatar, so he is really thinking of ways to do that. After a minute of thinking, he turned his focus again on the screen and cracked his virtual knuckles and said, "Alright, let's get this bad boy in shape." Yuki said while having sinister smile on his imaginary face. PAWAH stones. For more chapters. And join the Discord. Evrabonzz creators thoughts. 102 comments 0 vote. Chapter 11. Now that is a masterpiece. Yuki said as he looked at the image of the avatar he just designed and created. The image of the avatar in front of him looks really terrifying. It's like a combination of every descent monster that existed. Descent is a type of monster, look it up. Meh, I'm going to change it later anyway. I'll use this just for the sake of scaring the shit out of every new player that will saw me, hehe. After he confirmed that he was already finished in the character design, he pressed the finish button and another list of things popped out in front of him. But his avatar also changed into the same avatar that he designed. Now his looks and height changed and the demeanor of his character looks really terrifying, but if you hear Yuki's voice, it doesn't match his image at all. A white guy suddenly spawned beside him, and due to his extremely high luck, it turned its head to look at his side. It saw Yuki's avatar, which greatly terrifies him. He suddenly walks away because it was scaring the shit out of him. Hehehehe. Clears throat. Alright, where should I go with this? In front of him was a list of all the worlds he can start in Yggdrasil. As it can be guessed from the title, Yggdrasil mainly refers to Norse mythology and has 9 separate worlds based on it, which are Asgard, Alfheim, Vanaheim, Nidavellir, Midgard, Jotunheim, Niflheim, Helheim, and Muspelheim. While each world is a leaf of Yggdrasil with their own particular traits, they were estimated to be 2 to 3 times the size of Tokyo. So even though they are called worlds, they are really not worlds apart. It was like all of the worlds in the Norse Yggdrasil was combined into one continent. So meaning to say, even if you started in Asgard, you can still go towards the Midgard by just traveling on foot. But the whole map of the world is very big that even before the server shutdown of the game, only 40% of the map has been fully explored and recorded. Information about the Yggdrasil's map is extremely valuable. Every bit of information that people will discover is not for free, unlike in other MMORPGs. Especially if it has to do with the world items. There's a site called Yggdrasil's wiki. In the novel, it was said to be a famous site where important information about Yggdrasil is posted. Yggdrasil wiki apparently contains 50 of the 200 world items covered in their site. All of this information surrounding it and other sorts was put there by players specialized in espionage and deceit. This correlates with how attempts to steal key information will occur, and because of that, owners of such items will desperately try to find a way in concealing the fact from other fellow players. By the following rule, owners of Yggdrasil wiki will charge its members a fee each time they try to gain access to certain contents and information. When spies of different top-ranking guilds found the information they want, it was later posted here in this wiki with the purpose of gathering intelligence from all opposing sides. For starters, in the novel, Ain states that his said strength and cards he had up his sleeve as a Yggdrasil player made him self-doubtful. This was due to the fact that the wiki got every bit of information about him in their site for the public to see in the open, especially his enemies. Since the guild Ain's Ulgaun was one of the strongest guilds, a certain level of information about each of his guild members was extremely valuable. Of course, Yuki wasn't worried about it. He doesn't mind if his information got publicized or anything. He can even use it too, against his enemies. But of course, there's no need to worry about this since Yggdrasil's wiki has yet to exist in the current day. Now, in Yggdrasil, if I remember it correctly, the advantageous worlds for heteromorphic players were Niflheim, Helheim, and Muspelheim. Going to other world where there's a lot of humans is not an option. Not that I can only be hunted, but I might cause the trigger of the early racial discrimination here on the Yggdrasil for the heteromorphic players, and that is a huge problem. Yuki said as he don't want to cause any big impact in the game yet since it might ruin the timeline. So he think his next moves really carefully so he can avoid some nuisance. Since I choose a vampire, my weakness is quite a lot, but I think that it won't matter anymore in the long run. Back in the shadow battle, Yuki was described sometimes by his opponents as a very aggressive fighter, and like a wild animal. He keeps on charging towards his enemy whenever he saw a chance, a reason for not giving them even a time to think for their next move. That's why most of Yuki's opponent can't do anything other than dodging. Vampires have a life blood drain, creating spawn through blood drain, powerful muscular strength, and fast healing. And as an undead creature, they are effectively immortal. What could be the best racial class for Yuki other than this? It has a life drain, so the longer the battle, the more it comes to his favor and less for the enemy since fatigue and hunger statuses doesn't affect him. As an aggressive fighter, powerful muscular strength is like a meat and potato of every fighter like Yuki. And the explanation is not already needed for the summons and fast healing. Not to mention that blood life drain can heal much better than any type of HP potion. So where do I go? Yuki look at the list of realms he can go. He think for a couple of seconds until he finally decides what realm is the most favorable to him after comparing all the realms in his mind. For Yuki's choice, he decided to go in the realm of Niflheim. Yuki scrolls down the list and saw the Niflheim realm. He pressed the Niflheim on the list and suddenly, a circle appears below his foot. It releases some pixelated particles throughout Yuki's body and suddenly, his virtual body slowly vanished and his vision became black again. Yuki's vision is still black, but he can now saw his own avatar. He found out that he was standing in a black space. It was like the same to the white space where he met the god that gives him wishes. A small screen suddenly appears in front of him. It shows the whole map of the Niflheim area in the whole map of Yggdrasil. A text suddenly appears above the screen saying, "Choose your desired spawn area." In Yggdrasil, if you choose the humanoid or demi-humans as your chosen racial class, you can spawn in any type of town or city here in Yggdrasil. But if you choose as heteromorphic, you can only choose the option of being spawned in any desired area you want, since the majority of the heteromorphic race is not allowed to enter in any types of town or city in Yggdrasil. Well, better not be in the center. Yuki chooses to be spawned at the very bottom part of the map. Yuki did make sure that he will be spawned at the very edge of Niflheim, since this is one of the 3 worlds in Yggdrasil that as you go deeper at the very center of it, the more it will become much more dangerous, both the monsters and terrains. Yuki chooses the area where there are swamps. He pressed it and suddenly, everything around him changed, and not long after that, he finds himself standing in the middle of swamps. Alright, finally I'm in-game. No monsters around the area other than me, and that's good. Yuki looks at his map and saw that there are no monsters around the area yet. He checked the body of his avatar and noticed that he was glowing. He looks at his status and saw that he was in invisible mode. Must be an effect if you have just spawned in the area to avoid getting killed immediately. This mode will only last for 2 minutes, so if a player found himself in the middle of monsters or PKs, he will have time to get away and hide. Yuki opened his console and goes towards his inventory and saw an item in one of the slots. Gift. He opened up the gift and he received various things. You received 10,000 gold coins. You received an express boost ticket 24 hours 1. You received a weapon cart 1. You received a night pearl 1. Oh, some items, and an express boost. Okay, what's a night pearl? That dosen. Ting. Before he can even check his received items, he suddenly heard a new notification on his inbox. He quickly checks the notification and presses the message to read its contents. Attention! An achievement has been achieved. You are the very first player to pick a monster class in the whole Yggdrasil. You are the very first one to choose the way of monsters. It will all start with you. You will be the beginning. Congratulations. You will be rewarded for being the first one to pick the monster class. You will be given a new racial class for being the very first monster. You have unlocked a new racial class, the Origin. Do you want to use your new racial class? Oh. PAWAH stones. Evrabonzz creators thought.